Welcome to Data Wars.
Welcome everyone for another episode of Data Wars podcast. We are thrilled to have another great speaker today, and it's a long time coming, to be honest. But I'm super excited to talk to Tiankai Feng. Tiankai, welcome to the Data Wars podcast with me and Ash.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Look, guys, Tiankai Feng is someone I've been watching for many years now, and I'm so glad we are connected on LinkedIn, Tiankai. That's where I get to see all the fun stuff you do. For those of you who don't know Tiankai yet, that's kind of crazy that you don't know him because he's a very popular figure. He's a director at ThoughtWorks, focused on data and AI strategy. He's the author of Humanizing AI Strategy and Humanizing Data Strategy books. He's a former senior leader in product data governance, digital analytics at Adidas, right, Tiankai?
Correct.
And a great advocate for making data and AI more human, approachable, and useful. I'm super excited to have him. Tiankai, welcome to the Data Wars podcast again. Ash, anything you want to say?
I am just super excited because I prepared a lot of questions. Tiankai is someone who also inspired my journey for the podcast. I remember seeing one of his posts where he was playing the piano at a conference on stage. And I was like, there is somebody who is breaking barriers. I always thought that because I'm a certain way or, excuse me, I have a certain personality that I can't blend my talents because, it's a very professional and rigid world. So looking at him gave me that confidence that, you can just be you and still move forward along however technical professional you want to be. And people appreciate that. And that helps you shine in your unique way.
That's a great point, Ash. In fact, that's where we should start, I think. I think we should start a little bit about, Tiankai, your data side, the creativity side, the music that you love, and the writing you've done, the AI that you embrace. I think there's so much to unpack here. I'm super excited to talk a little bit about that and how you sort of bring that powerful combination of all these skills into all the great things you're doing. So maybe take us through that a little bit. Like talk us through the approach you're taking with creativity, writing, and all those things. Maybe we'll start there.
Sure, absolutely. First of all, thank you for all the kind words from both of you. That means a lot to me, and also even that I could contribute a little bit to this podcast being the way it is. I think is a big honor for me. So thank you very much for that. I think what's interesting about how I found my ways of being creative and bringing multiple aspects of my persona and my passions into my work persona is that it was never intentional almost, right? So from my point of view, every time I did it, it was just me trying out something new and see if it worked. I was never sure that it was going to work, right? It was just, I feel compelled right now to write a song about this because I'm really frustrated. I think it could use a little bit of humor and some light entertainment to actually make this topic a little less harsh, right? So I can talk about it with my colleagues.
We all need a little bit of humor in our life for sure. We get really businessy sometimes. And it kind of drives me crazy too.
Yeah. And I would basically just, of course, use the talents that I have, which a lot was about making music and being able to play the piano and sing stuff, that I would say, let me use my talents to make this happen. And it was for me a shortcut, right? So for me, it's easiest to just make a song about it. And that's how I can bring humor in. And I did it. And I didn't know that it would actually work, right? So it was something that surprised me, that it wasn't just something that a few close colleagues really enjoyed about myself, where I knew they would at least laugh about it. It became much bigger, right? Suddenly they encouraged me to post it on the intranet at the company I was working in. They encouraged me to post on LinkedIn, and one thing led to another, right? And I kind of got known for this thing of the one guy who makes music about data, or the guy who makes jokes about topics in a clear way. And I kind of took that to heart and said, okay, let me make the best out of this, right? As long as people want me to communicate in different ways, and as long as it resonates with people and it inspires people, I'm going to keep on doing that, because what else can I wish for than to have that kind of impact on people, right? So we're all, I think, trying to have some kind of impact in the world, and we do it through our jobs and through the way we are in life. And if I can do that with the passions I have, which are for my career and for my music and creativity and for being a parent, for example, then why not do it all together, right? So that's kind of where I'm seeing life is short, right? Just do what you want to do and see if it works or not, and what's there to lose actually, right?
And
So
you try again,
that's kind of
different thing if it doesn't work out next time, right? So great to know
exactly,
you're a parent
exactly.
too. I'm a parent. I'm a parent of a 13-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that going common for us too. So maybe, Priyanka, I think that there is a story about each one of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way we bought our upbringing was, the way we grew up, the way we moved from country to different country and set up a new life. There is an
Correct.
aspect to all of that, and
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like there is a story behind who Tiankai is today, and how he was raised, how he worked hard to get here. So maybe I think I think it will be very, very helpful to kind of understand the backstory,
Mm-hmm.
and how you came up to be what you are today. Can you take us through that journey a little bit? I think it will be
Yeah.
very interesting, I'm
Before
sure.
you answer that, Tiankai, I remember seeing a LinkedIn post from you where you went into talking about how growing up, you were trying to find your place, being a
Mm-hmm.
bit quirky, funny, and you were not sure how that would fit in, in the world, professional world,
Exactly. Yeah.
and and then you found that sort of balance where you would be yourself and kind of shine through it. um, so definitely, talk to the audience, and I'm also curious to listen to, how was that journey for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm going to start just a little bit to talk about my parents and how they came to Germany and how I was born here first, because that explains a lot about who I am today as well, right? So basically, back in the 80s, my parents came from mainland China, and they both had got a scholarship to do their PhDs here in Germany, which they successfully both did. And they decided to spend their life here in Germany and not go back to China. And
Mhm.
I was part of their lives here, and I was born and raised in Germany, right? Now you have to imagine that immigrants in Germany have not been around as long as in the US, for example. So it was just actually starting because there was a whole war going on and everything, right? So not so much immigration was happening back in the days. So me growing up as a Chinese looking person, but being born and raised in Germany was always tricky, right? So I was directly, of course, seen as an outsider and as a foreigner, but I didn't really feel like a foreigner, right? So because all I knew was always growing up and being there. And
Yeah.
I kind of noticed that immediately that was always a first different impression that others had of me, differently than
Yeah.
what I had of others, simply because I looked different. The other side was when I was visiting my relatives in China too, with my parents together, they would very quickly realize that I didn't talk or behave the same way as all the other Chinese kids around, right? So I was very quickly realized as being an outsider again, right? Meaning, no matter where I was kind of feeling like the outsider, right? And
Mhm.
I, instead of the dwelling on it, right, and instead of feeling lonely all the time, I decided to find ways how I can break those barriers and be seen more as an approachable person and not the different one, right? And one way
Mhm.
for me to do that was through humor and being quirky and being extroverted, right, in many ways. And it kind of became from the beginning having to force myself to be like this into a normal character trait of me, just to be like this, and as something that made me more successful in life, right? Because it would help me to make connections with people faster. And if
Mhm.
people would have heard of me before, I would know that I don't have to again break that barrier, because they know that I'm maybe the funny one or the musical one, right? And that has been
Yeah.
something that I kept in mind all through my career as well, right? As something where I'd rather have people know a little bit about me and the positive side of me already, rather than having to educate them and them having a first neutral or negative impression of me for certain reasons.
Mhm.
And that, without explicitly thinking about it, caused me to think about personal branding as well, right? So
Mhm.
when I then finally brought it together, right, and I was able to channel my basically creativity and channel my positivity and humor through music into my relationship with my colleagues or any collaborators, right, I felt like all of that finally somehow made sense, right? Everything that
Yeah.
I suddenly was all feeling and everything came together into, I think I found a way to break these stereotypes and be myself at any given time. And if people know already a little bit about me, thanks to my presence online, then it's even better for me, because then I don't have to first inform them about who I am. At least we have one starting point where they know the best part of me, and we can build on that, right?
Yeah.
This having said, though, only one more last thing about this, right, is that I also learned that with having more presence, we cannot make everyone happy, right? There was always going to be people that will not like who I am, or they will not like how I behave online. And I heard
Mhm.
all kinds of rumors behind my back about me only getting promoted because I made music videos, or I'm just posting on LinkedIn because I don't have anything else to do, and all these kind of things, which
Yeah.
honestly in the moment felt very hurtful, right? Because I put a lot of heart and a lot of energy into what I do, and I try to do
Mm.
everything I do the best way possible. But then again, it's like that, right? That you will never make everyone happy, right? So
Of course.
learning also to deal with criticism and knowing what is valid and invalid criticism, I think, is really key, that I also learned over the last years.
That's a great point. I think you come across as a very confident person, even when you do online videos. The persona you share. Were there moments of self doubt as you were kind of building a brand? You talked about people talking behind the backs, because when you do
Yeah.
something so out there, there's always a fear: will clients take me seriously? In your own head, you start feeling the imposter syndrome, that am I too out there? Is it affecting my
Hmm.
ability to earn? Um, so how did you kind of balance the two fights in the head about being serious and professional, and being goofy and confident and funny at the same
Yeah,
time, and blending those images in your head?
that's a great question. I do think that I had the privilege of being in a comfort zone when I started making these music videos, right? Because I
Mm.
was already in a corporate environment, and I had my role of being a marketing data analyst, and I had my set stakeholders that would enjoy working with me, right? So when I
Mhm.
would then post music videos or express myself musically, for them it would be already knowing me in a certain way, and then just seeing another layer of me on top of that, right? Rather than
Yeah.
seeing first only the music part of me, than the other way. And that, I think, always gave me a lot of confidence, knowing that certain people know me better than what I do now publicly, and
Mm.
those were the people that were actually understand who I am.
Mhm.
But you're right that over time, of course, the more, and the moment I switched to consulting work, of course, I had that thought: would that actually maybe be hurting the business, or maybe even be misunderstood in a certain way? But
Mhm.
again, I had that very quickly realized I had that safety net of my own colleagues being really encouraging me, and they would
Yeah.
tell me how clients and potential clients all have heard of me and want to work with us. Well, I got the
Mm.
confirmation very quickly, right? That there are certain types of people,
Mhm.
or there are more people that want to work with me and see me positively like this than negative ones, and aren't the ones that positively see me that way not the ones I want to work with more anyway, better. So, and that is kind of what really kept me going. But on that note, right, even what you said about the video, me being at the conference, I don't do only the music video and then I'm leaving, right? I combine
Yeah.
it with a talk that hopefully really is thought provoking and inspires people. And
Yes.
that's why I always try to combine both, right? I'm not just a
Yes.
one trick pony, I would say. I combine
Mm.
my humor and my creative side, but also with deep thoughts and ideas and opinions about the data and AI space. And I hope
Yes.
that this shows people that I'm more than just one thing, right? I can
Yes.
have deep thoughts and be funny too. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, basically.
Yeah. I love that response. I think it's something a lot of people struggle with, and especially it's amazing you have a safety net of colleagues who are supportive and who give you honest criticism. Anytime we're going on any sort of journey of self discovery where you put yourself out there, and we'll talk a bit more about knowledge side of things, and you talk a lot about what matters in governance and data and stuff. We'll get into that. Um, but in the prep, we talked a bit about in your journey, when you started, you're too much a people pleaser, and as
Mhm.
you kind of went along, and you matured, you went into more strategic decision making rather than trying to please people in the moment. So tell us a little bit about that part of your life, and how did you shift into the practitioner's mindset to succeed in this consulting kind of roles then?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think the reason why I was for a long time in the beginning of my career a people pleaser was now after reflecting on it, that saying yes to things came from the honor of being asked even to help, I think, right? Because by someone asking me to help, I was treated like an insider and not as an outsider, right? At least on the surface, that's how it felt like. So being honored to be asked to help led to, oh my God, I'm being asked finally. Of course I will help you, right? That is kind of the reaction that would happen in my head. And I would say yes to many things. And of course, that would lead to not always helping with the right things, being taken advantage of too, and not challenging what is being asked of me if I know better that what I'm doing is not actually the right solution to the problem. It's actually just a workaround that's gonna keep on more and more. And over time, just like with friendships, right, that only the real true friends are gonna be honest to you and they're gonna tell you the truth even if it doesn't feel comfortable, right? Only on the surface friends that are not so friendly with you, they're gonna lie to you and say everything is great. I realized the biggest trust actually comes from honesty and constructive criticism, right? And I basically, with a few trusted stakeholders, I started to push back a little bit, right? And not saying no directly, but saying no and giving a really good reason why and why I think an alternative is much better for them, right? And I trained with it basically, right? I practiced to communicate in a better way and to be able to not be just a people pleaser, but be actually an actual effective enabler of people to help them achieve what they need to do, but using my expertise and not just saying exactly what they ask me to say or doing exactly what they ask me to do.
I see. I love that. I love that answer. I think we all can find those sweet spots of friendships and really people who care about us rather than just providing insights which of no help. That begs me to take you to the questions which I think top of mind for us here in the podcast is, talking about companies struggling to turn data into business value right now, right? There's this whole thing about, like, currently, let's be honest, the current market is flooded with AI FOMO, right?
Right.
Many leaders are feeling that they're going to miss out if they don't move quickly.
Right.
And oftentimes I see companies or leaders in the companies buying a fancy sports car, think of any AI tool for that matter, before they even paved the driveway, which is, in my view, the trusted foundation of data and governance, right? So we are seeing a lot of leaders right now who are essentially trying to install a $50,000 smart fridge into the house that doesn't have plumbing yet. That's how I see it, right? So
Right.
you talk a lot about this, about the data ambition on LinkedIn and other places, and the consequences of data disaster, which we often come to know, like in our jobs every day. So I think the question in my mind is, someone like you, Tiankai, who is involved in the strategy, involved in the work of guiding executives, CEOs. How do you gently tell these CEOs that their dream of being Gen AI ready or agentic ready revolution is oftentimes held back in someone in the company who is a master spreadsheeter, has a document in his desktop that says v3 underscore final underscore use this underscore one. We see that all the time when
Right.
spreadsheet is the magic wand. How do you recommend the importance of data and governance for these folks, right?
Yes. I think the main topic that I need to talk about with C-level people and decision makers is what does value with AI mean that actually moves the needle, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is because a lot of people went for AI adoption in their organizations in the recent years now, right? And that was all about looking at how many people use a Copilot or use ChatGPT or use Claude, whatever, and the percentage of people that don't use it yet. Let's just increase that to the max, right? And let's everyone at least use it. But the thing is that if we only look at individual productivity, that has very little impact on the bottom line or the top line even, right? If we look at this. So even if everyone just saves a little bit of time here and there, right, it doesn't mean that overall we have now generated a lot of value. We have cut costs maybe by a little bit and we do things a little bit more efficiently, but that doesn't actually mean that it's a lot of value. the biggest value comes actually from redesigning entire processes around AI, right? To actually reinvent business processes that actually use AI and do it in a much more automated and smarter way than we do it before, which also encompasses meaning a lot of people have to change their jobs most likely, because in the new world we move from people doing things into AI doing things, and people deciding and guiding and basically directing more, right? And that is something that comes with a lot of costs too. So then it's like, either you make only small incremental value, sure, just roll out that AI tool that you have and you can hope for the best, but it's not going to make your shareholders happy if you're CEO,
Yeah.
right? It's just going to be a little bit like peddling with like single digit improvements. Or you want to actually move the needle, but that costs you a lot more investment than what you're doing right now, because you have to invent into the entire change management around it to actually be bold enough to create a new process around AI. Are you ready for that? Right? So
Yeah.
it comes down to that very difficult choice. And this is where it gets really exciting. Once my clients and decision makers, they understand that, the more exciting conversations come, because they're then at a path to take, right? And no matter what they take, they have to make peace with what comes afterwards because they made that choice. And that is a lot of the projects that I'm dealing with nowadays.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the sort of extension of that question is, how do we find that sweet spot? I would think this is very unique to every organization, right? So
Yeah.
a certain formula or strategy that you apply for one company with certain focus, certain culture in the company of how good they are at adopting new technologies like AI will differ from another company, which is maybe a slow adopter, or doesn't have the right people with the right mindset even, right? So it would differ. So kind of like, how do you find a balance of what you would recommend to be the starting point, right? There is always like okay, start small, grow fast and quickly kind of approach we have taken, even for MDM, for example, master data management implementation. When we do, let alone AI initiatives like the basic mastering data governance initiative, we always tell customer to start small and see where their comfort level is, right? And before they scale it to a level where they can actually now make it a broader enterprise level adoption. So is that how you think about it, or is there a better formula you have found where, yeah, you can go and these are no brainers, like you absolutely got to do these things, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious how you think about that.
Absolutely. I do think you're right. There is a sweet spot between being ambitious enough to make a real change and have a real impact, but not disruptive, not being too disruptive to actually break the value chain or to break entire business processes on the way, right? And I like what you said about starting small and then generating value incrementally and iteratively, because this is not only important for delivery, it is also important to gain the confidence as an organization, right? Because why would you trust yourself to be able to reinvent an entire process if you've never done it before, right? So you have to first find bits and pieces and proof of values and some success cases to actually prove to yourself, we as an organization can do this, right? We can make bigger and smaller changes, and we can actually generate value with it. And the more you do it, the more confidence you also gain to do it for bigger changes and bigger impact cases. And I think over time, that will be a nice portfolio of use cases that you implement to then finally scale the value that you want to generate.
Yeah. To add to Prash's question, Tiankai, what we've been seeing is that AI innovation train is moving so fast that when you recommend something to a client, especially in consulting, by the time they get their head around it, get a POC, whatever they're trying to build is outdated. It's been so hard trying to drive this from a technology perspective. When it started, it was like you said about just usage of LLMs. Perfect. Okay. Soon that metric was quite dated, as people were in the prompt hole and they were just prompting for hours without possible conclusion. Then you got into, okay, let's invest in LLMs, right? The race was, okay, let's build our old LLM models. Then the whole wrapping and API layers for AI using ChatGPT or Amazon or AWS, whatever, right? I mean, you go with cloud APIs, and then now the agent stuff has come out, right? The stuff is moving so fast. how do you approach this area when you consult in this too with clients?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's two sides to it. One is that looking into the newest models and the newest capabilities of AI is really exciting, right? And for the most cutting edge use cases, I think that is really useful to know what is possible, right? And to be able to use it in the right way. However, I think that for many use cases that I work with clients on, you don't even need the newest model. Even older models, for example, and keeping the same model for at least a year or 1 year and a half will not actually change the effectiveness of what needs to be done, right? Because most of it still comes down into the context that is built around the model and the proprietary solutions, what the organization that itself needs to actually provide as context, right? Like all of the unstructured data, all of the institutional knowledge that's being captured and documented, that is something the organization has to create anyway to actually make the model more effective. Not getting a new model, because even a new model will not make sense out of chaos and messiness in your own information, right? So I think then it's basically about educating the clients, right? To say, I know it's easy to chase the newest models and the newest applications, but you need to get your own horse in order first, right? And actually create the right foundation to create the context that AI needs. And then no matter what model you're going to use, it's at least going to be very effective compared to before.
Yeah. So essentially, what you're saying is, let's talk about governance.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I love it. Governance is the foundation of it all, end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how, just I'm curious now, the answer lies in governing. In your opinion, how does AI governance differ from traditional data governance?
Yes. So I think with traditional data governance, and it has existed now already for a while now, right? The best practices come from that end-to-end thinking, that it's not only about how the data is being used, but also how it's produced and how it's processed on the way, and think about data life cycles and data flows overall, right?
100%.
And in that way, AI could be just seen as another data consumption layer, right? That now that data is not only used for operational decision making or for reporting, it's also now being used actually for AI and LLMs, et cetera, et cetera. So that means there's more requirements coming in towards the data. That changes how we have to do data governance again, because all of these requirements are very new to us, like unstructured data and semantic requirements. All of that is new that we not need to incorporate. However, AI governance has one main difference where we need additional subject matter expertise to govern the other layers that are not data, right? And by that, I mean the AI model itself, the AI agent itself, and the interface layer that we now need to have on top of it. All of those were not in focus of data governance before now, right? So suddenly we need to understand how to do model evals and how to have agent observability and how we have interface, user experience feedback loops. All of the things were not actually in the focus of traditional data governance before, but now needs to be come into focus for AI governance. So in a way, I see like a symbiotic relationship, right? Where AI governance helps to update data governance, but data governance needs to catch up with AI governance again. And together they actually can do and basically have the right scalable governance across the entire ecosystem of data and AI.
Yeah. I love it. I love that
No,
question answer. So, Tiankai, one very tactical question, because I know I just want to throw it in there and see what your point of view is, because
Sure.
there is so many vendors right now. There's so many models, Like every day we hear about something new, right? There are so many use cases to solve. There are so many business processes to optimize. Every vendor is pitching a new thing and different angle, whether they really have a agentic or a Gen AI solution or not. Maybe they just change their website to be a .ai company now suddenly. So it's easy. If I am a business leader, if I'm a leader running a company, it's super hard for me to focus on where I can actually make an impact by embracing AI when all these things are going on in the market. So I'm curious if you have found a way to avoid that chaotic situation and start somewhere which is meaningful and impactful. Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think the I mean, and I talk about that in my book. It's very simple for me as a concept, which is follow the pain, right? And by that, actually, I mean that instead of just looking into all the solutions that are out there, think about the problem you actually want to solve and then you need to solve, right? It really comes down into
It's like
reflecting
a
on
tool
your own
versus the
organization.
problem situation, right? I just got
Exactly.
tools, so I have to solve every problem in the world. But no, right? You figure out what
Exactly.
the real problem you have, then figure out the
You
right
Exactly.
said
tool. Right?
follow the pain, Tiankai. Is that what you said? Follow the pain.
Exactly. Follow the pain,
Okay.
right? So you
Makes
need to
sense.
acknowledge where the biggest pain points are. And then
Mhm.
only then, once you know what the biggest pain points are, do you find that solution that fixes that pain in the best way possible, right?
Mhm.
Because every great solution starts with having clear requirements, first of all, and not just being hyped about it or seeing it that it's fancy and it's really shiny and using it. It comes from deeply understanding that it actually solves the problem that you have. And I think that is something that many decision makers need to consciously do, right? Not just follow the hype and see what else is shiny and look at the stats of how powerful and performant a certain model is, but does that actually solve the problem? Does it fit to my company's culture? Does it fit into the tech stack that I have? Does it fit into the processes that I have? And
Yeah.
that is then the right choice. And it might be surprising that it's often not actually the most shiny one. It might be a very niche one that doesn't do that much
Actually
marketing
helps.
to actually
Mhm.
help you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
I think that's a great point. I
you
love
know,
the analogy of the follow the pain.
yeah, I've
Yeah.
written that goal actually here. Pain. I think every
Mm.
entrepreneur asks that question, right? How do you solve a pain point? But the question which came to my mind, Tianka, was we're talking about literacy here, and working in governance for a long time. I find that it's perceived as, rather than a helpful division of the company, it's always perceived as sort of a bureaucratic arm. Whenever you try to approach, whether policy or enforce something, people feel like you're slowing them down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how do you approach that side? Do you use literacy to make governments feel like acceleration rather than friction? Talk to us a little bit about, how do you use this as an enabler where people are able to see value? Do you use
Yeah.
the human aspect of it to build the relationships so people understand it better? Like, how do you approach it?
Yes. I think I mean there's two ways to it. One is if the word governance has been heavily burned within an organization and
Mhm.
it would take a lot of efforts to rebrand it. I would just not use it anymore. I would just call it something else so we get the chance of a
Mm.
new start, right? Call it
Yeah.
enablement, call it excellence, whatever you want to call it, but don't call it governance anymore. And you have the chance of a new start. So you leave all that baggage in the past and you start fresh, right? To create the right image. But the other side of it is I like to use the method of comparing short-term thinking with long-term thinking, right?
Mm.
Because what in the end governance actually does is to help to avoid and prevent problems in the mid to long-term future. And that means to do things right that might impact the short-term efficiency or effectiveness, but it's better for the long run, right? Meaning, for example, typically data quality standards, right? Okay, we cannot have requirements right now, but sooner or later, once people want to use the data and they all think it's untrustworthy, we have to set up anyway, and then it takes us a lot more time to gain the trust back than we would do it from the beginning, right?
Mm.
Same with compliance, right? We don't have to think about compliance now, but then later on, if you actually got getting fined, then you need to do governance anyway. But it had cost us a lot of money, for example, to actually do it.
Yes.
So let's just think a little bit more long term and trust
Mm.
governance to think what is best for short term, mid term, and long term to make the right choices. And then I always end on the final note. It's always easier to prevent than to clean up the mess afterwards, right? And everyone agrees usually to that point, and that
Yeah.
finally wakes people up to say, okay, let's not make a mess and later on, and let's try to prevent it now already. Let's see how we can do this in the best way.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think, because organizationals by nature, especially if you've been around for a while, are messy. An
Mm-hmm.
organization with a footprint of 50 plus years or 40 plus years, they will not have, the best of the systems. They will not have the
Right.
best of the technologies. Even governance, for that reason, it's a spaghetti code trying to figure out who owns what because the data domain is not that clear. It's all functional domains, how business runs, where revenue comes from, and that's what kind of drives that conversation. So I like your advice on kind of trying to forge that bond with people, help them understand. And it's a slow process. You get there,
Exactly.
but try to kind of paint the long-term picture for them. Um, no, that's a great point.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm curious about your writing.
Yeah.
Let's spend a little bit of time on that. So I think question in my mind is, again, you are such a multi-skilled person, Tiankai. So I don't think it is hard for you, but I'm always fascinated by how you sort of balance writing for C-level execs who are trying to humanize data, or focus on data strategy, and you're trying to teach them how to humanize the data strategy. And I think you also have a book on AI strategy.
Yep.
And then on the other side, you're writing books for children's. So
Right.
that's pretty like a broad, like,
Yeah.
I don't even know how you do that. So the question in my mind is like how one will go about doing that, and what goes in the mind for you to be able to do that kind of in my opinion, somewhat superhuman skill. So talk a little
Right.
bit about your writing books in general, but also about that balancing act of writing for strategy, but also taking care of
Yeah.
children and educating them. So
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, to be fair, I never even imagined to be an author before I started writing books, right? That was something that an opportunity came around where I was translating a book from Laura Madsen, Disrupting Data Governance, into German for Technics publications. And the editor in chief, Steve, had then asked me if I wanted to write my own book after I translated it very well. And that led me to actually both those books that are already out, but also the upcoming children book that will be released soon. And what can I only say with writing is that I always had a clear audience in my mind, right? And for the first one, for example, it was about people that are busy and that don't have a lot of time. I want them to understand about how to make data strategy human. And my whole writing style was exactly that, like short chapters, not too long of a book overall, and always clear insight nuggets, right? So people that were busy always had like a few minutes, could read something and had something actionable to do. For AI, I wanted to be a little bit more optimistic and give people an optimism about the future, because it's so easy to get frustrated or anxious about how AI is going to impact our lives, and to give a picture of how it could look like, where it's human centric and we live happily side by side with AI, right? And that was my goal. So I wrote it a little bit longer, but with a lot of humor and heart as well. And then with the children's book, I had my own kids as the audience in mind, right? That how are they going to be fit for the future, right? My kids are, by the way, 6 and 4, so they're a little bit younger, but they're in that age where they're very curious. But I don't want to destroy their dreams or give them all of the bad things that might happen in the world yet, right? So how do I find a way to give them positive guidance on what are the right things and the wrong things to do with AI, and how to basically be human in the future? And that led me to write that third book. So in a way, it was always based on the intention of me and with the target audience in mind, and giving them something for it. That led me to find my way how to write it. And yeah, I think I'm just a person that likes to put myself through challenges, I think, and trying out new things, even if I'm not sure if I can do it. And writing has definitely been part of that type of challenge for myself as well.
yeah,
Why?
maybe a very
Why?
quick follow-up on that. Oh, Ash, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I wanted to just understand. You pick humanizing word as a central theme.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that word?
Yeah.
And what was it about that word that stuck with you?
Huh. Great question. It didn't take me long. I think when I was asked about what I would write about, immediately it was about humanizing data strategy. Like the book title itself was set from the very beginning. I couldn't even tell you why I came up with it. I mean, it might be that I have used it at work a lot already. I think I might have been an advocate for it already for a while until I started writing about it. So I was probably using it in my day-to-day a lot to say, let's humanize this, or let's be human-centric about this, where it was just natural for me, right? So when I was then being asked to write a book, I realized that title doesn't exist in that way anywhere else, right? And no one wrote too much about, not many people wrote about the human side of data and AI that much yet. So it was
Yeah.
just a very natural reaction for me to come up with that word and using that concept in my books.
Because when I first time saw that title, it came with a presumption that it is not human right now. Everybody
Yeah.
who works in data strategy is very robotic, or it is a very boring field because there's a lot of reading and stuff.
Exactly.
So it had an instant appeal to it, which kind of I think drew a lot of people to it. Okay, how do you make it human? Because, like I said, governance has a branding problem, data
Yeah.
strategy has a branding problem. So it's a insightful topic. Prash, I'll let you continue.
No, I think that's a great point. By the way, I was just literally visiting Amazon.com to check out your book. Humanizing Data Strategy is $9.99 on Kindle. By the way, anyone wants to just get a Kindle book, I would recommend paperback, which is a bit expensive, but it's better worth investment. Do
Yes,
get
yeah.
the copy of that from Tiankai. I think the same thing probably is true for AI strategy book. I think, right?
I think so too. Yeah.
Tiankai?
Mhm.
It's also
Yeah.
on there. Good. And your upcoming book is not yet published on the children's one,
Not
right?
yet.
That's coming soon.
No.
Okay.
That's what comes soon.
Anything you
I
want to
can
say
say,
about that? And
yeah,
when it's coming?
exactly. So the title is going to be Robbie Just Wants to Help. And
Huh.
Robbie is a robot.
Yeah.
And that is the analogy for AI, right? Basically, right? And
How
I actually
cool
made
is
my
that?
2 kids the main characters of the book. And what happens in the book is that dad brings from work a robot home and tells the kids that they can use it to help with things at home. And they ask it to help, but they learn on the way that not everything goes according to plan, and they need to teach Robbie how to actually help in the right way. So basically, it actually all works. And that is
So
kind of the story,
Robbie
right? And
hallucinates, perhaps. That could be the
exactly,
problem too.
exactly. That's one of them. That's
Oh,
one
yeah.
of the
I love it.
problems.
I love
It's
it.
trained with outdated data in one case, and it comes up with a very outdated
Yeah.
concept, or it
Yeah.
is trying to help with cleaning up their room, but it basically puts apart all their furniture because they didn't tell it what not to do, for example, right? So all these kind of things basically are metaphors and analogies, right, of how
That's
people
funny
should
because
interact with AI in
every
the
day
right way.
life of ours is so reliant on AI now. I went for a lunch yesterday with my colleagues. One of them just got a Tesla with FSD on it, full self-driving. It's amazing how crazy
Wow.
good it is. I'm not any way Tesla fan or Elon fan these days. Not to be political, but for many other reasons. But the way that car operates was insane. I was very much surprised and amazed by the quality of the parking level of skills it produces. Just
Nice.
AI real work, right? It's amazing to see
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
But yeah, it's fascinating to hear about your writing and the story. Ash, I think you have one more question you want to cover before
I
I go
wanted to
into
just
one-on-one.
have a few more questions, so we'll see how much time we have. So you said the book title was Robbie
Just wants
Goes.
to help. Robbie just wants to help. Yeah.
Okay. When you're telling the story about bringing the robot home, it reminded me. My daughter was doing March break is on right now. She was doing some homework yesterday. So usually what she does is she comes to me and says, "Hey, check my worksheet or check my answers." But lately, what she's been doing is she takes a picture for Gemini,
Yeah.
and she just says, "Check my homework." And then Gemini tells us question 12 is wrong. But like you said, I'm looking forward to that book because kids know how powerful it is. But it took me a while to train my kids to learn how to use it. Otherwise, they would not know what to do with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that'll be a fascinating book, I think, when it comes out, especially for all the parents who are eager to get their kids into technology and AI.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something about a segment of our audience, which is young professionals.
Mhm.
And when I started in data, there was no such field called governance. It was a matter of chance and luck that I kind of got into it and became the hottest sort of field in data. For anybody starting out right now, there's a lot of tools as well as in this space. You operate more on a strategy and leadership level. You started sort of, where a young professional starts out of school, working at a company, and slowly kind of reaching this level, what advice do you have for anybody starting out today or in the last 3 to 5 years on how to aspire to be in a leadership role where you have taught leadership on a public platform, you have consulting leadership through the company you work at, where you have the ears of top level CDOs. How do you build credibility to get to that point where people are listening to you?
Yeah, wow, that's a very big question. I don't think I have an answer to all of that, but I can say that the one thing that if I could give myself some good advice when I was younger, right, that that I realized that a dream job doesn't actually exist, right? That a dream job is something you actually shape yourself within the boundaries of any job that you have, right? So that means that in whatever role I was in so far, I kind of pushed the boundaries of what that job meant because I wanted to see how that can fulfills me more and how much more I can have impact. Because a job is always more than what is formally written in the job description, right? It's always beyond that, and you can have impact in different ways. And it's always these bets that I made that has caused me to be seen and to be perceived as someone who knows how to make things being next level, right? And how to make that even more effective than it was before. So basically, innovation comes from within, right? And making things more perfect comes from within too. So I would just tell every young professional, whatever job you're in, right, see the boundaries that you have within and try to push it, right? Do what you think is right. Try out new things. And as long as it doesn't break anything, right, it's always nice to just start experimenting and try out new things and then iteratively build on it to be more and more impactful. And
Push
don't
along.
let it ever, never just passively wait around and hope that good things happen for you. You have to create your own opportunities.
Yeah. I
One
love
of
that
the
suggestion.
challenges. Prash, sorry, you were saying something?
No, I just said I love that suggestion. That's a great suggestion, great recommendation.
One of the challenges I've seen, and I know I personally struggle with this as well, when someone is too technical and they're trying to move into a leadership in a business role, or the other way around, for commercially strong leaders who are less technical, they struggle with building credibility with the technical team. In my case, I'm a computer engineer. I was very technical. Back then, there was not as much money as there is today being a developer or working for Meta and getting a $200 million package. So the money was generally in sales and marketing. So the gravitation, me growing up was I'm super technical. I am basically tech sales. I'm doing all these demos, but I'm not making the big money. So I want to transition into a more outgoing personality, a more extrovert person, so I can transition into, practice lead, sort of role. It seemed more fun as well. So I transitioned in that direction personally. But now the tide has shifted. If you're more technical, there are big bucks to be made there as well.
Fair,
But either or, wherever people are starting their career today, in your advice, what would you suggest to them? How do you bridge that gap?
Yeah. Oh, I think the answer might be lying in your question even already, because the key, I think, is being that bridge, right? Because the problem is thinking in black and white, right? Either you're technical or you're commercial, but there's no in between. But I think the most successful people in the future are exactly on that bridge, right? Because those are the ones that know how to understand both sides and how to actually lead from requirements towards implementation and from implementation towards value. And they understand the value chain of how technology actually brings value to companies and to the world. And the good thing about it is that we all probably in the past learned the hard way of how to jump to the other side and how to upskill ourselves. But AI nowadays is so powerful to supercharge our learning process, right? Because it can adapt to our learning process so quickly, and we can have such a tailored learning experience nowadays that it can fill in the blanks so nicely that I think what I used AI most for in the last 2 years is learning new stuff. And I've never learned as much new stuff as in the last 2 years to feel so competent now in so many areas that I can now see the bigger picture, right? So I think all that's left is intentions, right? As long as professionals out there never stop learning and they want to upskill themselves in all directions and they want to be certainly the bridge for the future, among many things, do everything in your power to be upskilled that way and to never give up on being across all sides if possible.
Yeah.
That's great.
I love that, Tiankai. Last question for me. Sort of, this is something we do always, Tiankai, is to focus also a little bit on the new and upcoming skill set, or the folks who are coming to the market as fresh graduates out of college, out of school, out of different backgrounds. It's a hard market to penetrate for them. It's
Right.
the job market is challenging. There are quite a few barriers for their entry. They don't have experience that they need sometimes, but they have a talent, they have skills, they have new creative ideas that they want to bring into the table.
Exactly.
So I think as you shape your kids, for example, for the next generation of workforce, whatever that's going to look like, and as well as the folks who are coming to the market as we speak right now, I'm curious, what kind of advice would you give, given where the market is and where the job market is and all the challenges that we're seeing in the AI world? How do you sort of humanize those folks and rooted them in the right areas so they make the best out of the future they're walking into?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, and also that is the $1 billion question, right? How will the world look like in the future, and what roles will still exist, and what jobs will we all have? I have a more philosophical take on this, I would say, which is that no matter what the next generation of professionals does, I want them to focus on how to be humanly original. And what I mean by that is, like, just thinking about the inherent basics of how AI works. It's being trained by historical data from human created information, right? And by doing that, any creativity that comes from AI is just mix and matching the past creativity that already happened, right? It will never come up with a truly original new thing, right?
Yeah.
So you could not ask it to create a whole new art style, and you could not ask it to create a whole new programming language, right? It was just mix and match what it already knows, which makes being truly original as a human being much more important, right? So wherever you are and whatever you do, be excellent at what you do, and you might not be able to compete in repeating the knowledge and like summarizing it as quickly or basically processing it quickly as AI.
Yeah.
But what AI will never be able to replace you on is being original in it, right? Come up with
I
new
love
original
that comment.
things and truly create new things, because that's going to be the main basically unique selling point of anyone and what puts you apart from the rest, because you have been a pioneer and an originator, and that counts even more, I think, in the future.
I really love that suggestion, because this is what I tell people also, like, be yourself, be original, bring your own skills, because there's always value in uniquely what we are and what we define ourselves as.
Exactly.
And the other important thing I think we all need to learn, and even we need to learn, as even though we have spent 20 years in this industry, in the market, is for me, myself, for example, is be adaptable, because this is constantly changing world where things move fast. Things are like, we can't be behind and say, oh, that's new, I can't do that. Like, there's no way to do that anymore. You always show flexibility, you adopt, you quickly move, and bring your unique talent to that. I think that's powerful. So, Tiankai, this has been a wonderful, wonderful chat. I could go on and on and on. I'm seeing my recording time right now, 53 minutes already, almost 54. But this is what happens when we have great conversations. And you've been really, really valuable for this conversation. So, sort of wrap up for me, where can people find you? How do they contact you? How do they talk to you? What do you recommend? Any wrap up things you want to do? And Ash, I know you have a question there, so I want to keep some space for that.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, people can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. And I'm actually very approachable. So, if you're curious to understand more, I want to talk to me about something, just send me a message, connect with me. I'm very happy to do so. Also, people can check out my books, right? Humanizing Data Strategy, Humanizing AI Strategy. They're both on Amazon or wherever you regionally online buy your books. It's already present in a lot of online bookstores too. And yeah, for the music part that was mentioned in the beginning, I have a YouTube channel as well. And we can, I think, link that in the comments too, right? So if people want to see a
Yes,
little bit of what we talked
absolutely.
about, how made musical fun out of data and AI, people can check that out.
Yeah, that's
Well, thank you,
awesome.
Tianka. This has been great. There's been a lot of great pointers, and I was taking notes. Some of the things I'll leave the audience with to what you said. Follow the pain.
Mhm.
That was very powerful, I think, the statement you made. So, whether you've been in the career for a while or you're just starting out, if you follow the pain and try to solve for the pain, whether it's in your job or it's a problem trying to solve, generally you will end up better than the rest of the people. Think long term versus short term. That's another thing which Tiankai touched on. I
Yeah,
think very important. If you kind of combine follow the pain with thinking long term, you solve a very, very important problem. Be excellent at whatever you're doing today. I love that point as well. I think a lot of people, when they're working day to day, they just don't find what they're doing valuable,
yeah,
even though from outside in it might look like very valuable. And that's what everybody needs to remind it of, that be excellent, because whatever you're doing, somebody else is dying to do what you do today. So
exactly.
appreciate the gift that you have been given. So do the best at your job, push boundaries, push borders. Innovation comes from within. I think that's been the theme all along. My energy kind of talking to you has been, whether
Yeah,
it's music, the data, just try to, innovate from within. And to the last thing which you said is humanly original. It's all about your creativity, trying to be original. Use AI in a way to process faster, summarize faster. But once you have that input, try to kind of put it all together.
absolutely.
I hope I did a decent
I
job
couldn't have
summarizing.
summarized any better than that, Ash.
Yeah, that was
That's
a great
amazing.
wrap up.
I
Thank you so
love
much.
it.
Yeah.
No, it was a great conversation, and I'm sure our audience is going to enjoy it as much, Tiankai. Thank you
Yeah,
again for making
absolutely.
time, and I forward to kind of interacting with you professionally.
Yeah. Thanks so much for the wonderful questions. It was really great talking to you too. And yeah, I can't wait for people to hear this conversation as well.
Thank you, Tinkai.
Thank you, everybody.
That's a wrap.